Friday, former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin will be sentenced for the murder of Houston native George Floyd. Prosecutors have asked the judge to sentence Chauvin to at least 30 years. Chauvin's attorney recently filed a motion seeking a much lesser sentence, even as low as probation. Jason Miles now joining us live from one of George Floyd's murals near downtown Houston. And Jason, Floyd's family and friends hoping Chauvin gets the maximum.
That's right, Lynn. I spoke with multiple family, friends, or others today who knew George Floyd. Some plan to go up to Minneapolis for the sentencing, to be there in person. Others plan to stay here and watch it. One close friend, like many, are anxious about it. In a Baytown park she and George Floyd frequented.
The last week he was here in Houston. He was here in Baytown.
Tiffany Cofield shared thoughts on behalf of herself and one of Floyd's sisters about Friday's sentencing of the ex-cop who killed her good friend and sparked national outrage.
I actually have great anxiety about Friday. Great anxiety.
Cofield accompanied Floyd's family to Derek Chauvin's trial earlier this year, during which a jury found him guilty of second and third degree murder and second-degree manslaughter.
Derek Chauvin altered our whole neighborhood, our whole community, in ways that he would never even understand or know.
Floyd was killed in May of last year after officers responded to a report that he used a counterfeit $20 bill, handcuffing him face down amid pleas that he could not breathe. Chauvin pressed a knee to his neck for more than 9 minutes.
He was pleading for his life. He was pleading for air. He was pleading to breathe. And you still didn't care.
Cofield told me she didn't want to seem callous, but has little sympathy regarding the maximum possible sentence of 30 years and holds out hope that federal charges result in even more time for Chauvin down the road.
I want good justice. I want solid justice. I want equal justice.
Something she said her friend never got. And Derek Chauvin has not expressed remorse in public since all of this began. He will have a chance to address the courtroom on Friday. Family members will get a chance to provide impact statements as well. And keep in mind, 3 other officers still face trials in relation to George Floyd's death. Back to you.
All right, we'll see what happens on Friday. Jason, thank you.